some companies are doing this whole return to work thing, which so much controversy around that. But I think the one thing that we have learned from the pandemic, from coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, is that we have learned to work in more virtual environment now more than ever, whether that's completely remote or it's kind of a hybrid type of thing. That is something that we are working through.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership. We're learning how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, thank you so much for listening to this episode. But if you're only listening to this, you can also watch it on YouTube. Other thing on YouTube that I don't ever really talk about and I think about it is that you can see the IncrediPaul merch I have on. So the Be Incredible shirt, IncrediPaul hat, and there's a lot of other things on there, whether it's different hats, snapbacks, t-shirts, polos, all those different things. That's one way you can help support the podcast. But whether if you're just listening, watching, you've got merch, I really am thankful for you for supporting what I do with IncrediPaul, helping young professionals in STEM become the most incredible versions of themselves. So with this episode, it's a solo episode, as you probably already imagined. You saw it from the description or you saw the title of it, talking about thankfulness and gratitude. And so I think this may be becoming a yearly thing. I did this in 2023, now again in 2024. Took some time to just be thankful and talk about some stuff from the year. 2024, spoiler alert, has been an incredible year. It's also been an insane year. And I'll get into it here shortly. But it's really important that we take the time to be thankful and grateful. A grateful heart is really key as far as psychologically speaking to making sure that we're in a good place with either it's the cortisol levels or I don't know all the technical jargon, but having a thankful, grateful heart is really key to your emotional and mental health for sure. And the other thing about being thankful and grateful is that you can't really be thankful and complain at the same time. Obviously, life is hard. There's so many different things that happen, whether or not you like the results of the election. I'm not even going to get into that, but whether or not you like the results of the election or what it seems to be, who knows? We are getting through it. We'll see what next year has in store for us. But with that, I will say, really focusing on what I'm thankful for. And you get a little bit of insight into me. I'm more on the personal side, which I'm trying to do more of, when my newsletters talk about some of the personal stuff, as well as all the stuff I've been doing on the business side to get more insight into me in this episode. So really diving into it, one of the biggest things that happened for me this year is actually moving to Nashville. So been in St. Louis since really the beginning of 2019. We worked at a couple different companies, a few different roles there. And I actually also grew up in St. Louis. So it's a city that I came back to after being gone for several years, going to college, working out in New Mexico, and then coming back. So it was really comfortable for me. And the other thing I've been learning is when you're comfortable, you don't always grow. Not to say that there weren't things I did to get out of my comfort zone and different things that I learned while I was in St. Louis, but I was in a city that I knew really well, even though I was also exploring some parts of it I hadn't got to explore before. But I will say that just anytime you move, it just accelerates your growth. So in this case, that's definitely what happened with the move, going to Nashville. And the other thing mentioned is I talk about being a person of faith. So with that, I think Jesus is first, I am second. And that's my heart for all the stuff that I do. All the stuff that I do, the passion I have comes from the love I have for Jesus, and Jesus really not being a respecter of persons, and all the people that are the quote sinners of the world were always attracted to Jesus. So that is my mindset anytime I'm doing anything, is that What would Jesus do? How would Jesus treat different people? And Jesus accepted everyone as they were. He just being around him, people change, because when you're around someone like that who's perfect, sinless, I won't get into preaching, but it changes people when you're around Jesus. So like for myself, that really guides everything that I do. And it's really why I'm passionate about what I do about empowering young professionals in STEM. And so with that, I had a community at the church I had in St. Louis. So moving to Nashville, had to find a new church, new community. And so I was able to find a new church here in Nashville of a quote mega church, which I think it's any church is over 1,000. And so with that, there was a smaller groups that met once a week on Thursdays. I was able to get plugged in, connected, get some really good relationships there. And the funny thing is, it's not even something I realized I would need, so definitely in that moment, as I was building these relationships, something I'm thankful for, some of the key leaders there were able to support me through a very difficult time. So I'll touch a little bit about this, but I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's kind of in the past and God's done a lot of stuff in me. And I already wrote a newsletter about it that talks about resilience as a lifestyle. But like leading up into this year, even through the moving, I was actually married. I was supposed to move here with my wife at the time, but just through a whole lot of things, but infidelity, definitely being the biggest part of it, was no longer with her. And then now really just walking out this path on my own, definitely on my own healing journey. And I think that's also the reason why on these last several episodes, probably from earlier this year, you see me talking more about therapy and the importance of it. And that has definitely been a huge importance on me. Definitely, I talk about my faith in Jesus, definitely been strengthened through this, but then also the value of therapy and understanding just the inner workings of why people act the way they act, or why I act the way I act, and the way I can get better at things, to deal with just like a huge thing, like when someone betrays your trust in such a way like that there's a lot of things that you have to work on, because there's a tendency to think that everyone's like that, or you could put the blame on yourself, all these different things I've been working on. So one of the things I'm really thankful for is a community I was able to build in that church in St. Louis, in Nashville, because in a new city, a lot of people around me, but also super thankful for the friends I have in St. Louis and really around the country. So I'm someone that travels a lot, and I've lived in a few different places just from the nature of work. And I have really great friends who were able to step up and really support me through this time, talk me through different things. And so that's something I'm really thankful for. And even in a newsletter I mentioned, if for whatever reason you are going through a difficult time, definitely seek out therapy, seek out help. Do not try to do it on your own. I know I keep coming back to this. So Justin Schaefer talked about it on his show, I think it was episode 91, about outsourcing your mental health, like going to the experts to help with that, especially if you're in STEM or you're an entrepreneur, which I believe is like majority of my audience, is that stuff can be hard. And sometimes we don't understand like the implications of it. Reach out to either your university or your employer, because you might be able to get free therapy, and that can make a huge difference. So that's one thing I've definitely been thankful for with the communities, the friendships that I've had. Also, I've been able to, I think, speak a lot more on the nonprofit side, or just travel more for speaking. I think I'm always doing different speaking stuff virtually, but and I want to make sure I don't miss it out. So just like listening to some of the stuff I've seen, looking over here, is that I went to Washington, D.C. a couple of times for speaking engagements. I went to Baton Rouge to speak for a conference that LSU was hosting. I did one for Detroit for Wayne State, through Michigan LSAM, also one for Ames, Iowa, through Iowa State. There are a lot of other virtual things as well. So that was a blessing to be able to do that, do more stuff in person as opposed to only doing virtual stuff. And then just develop new partnerships. So as you all know, that I'm really passionate about young professionals in STEM. I also have a nonprofit, NALA STEM, that I've talked about a few different times. National Alliance lead the acceleration of science, technology, engineering, and math. And so with that, I have a huge passion for people who are underrepresented, whether they're minorities or women in STEM. And I was able to connect with the colors of her success. So I know Mia Williams is on the podcast, and then was able to connect with the Color Connect as a career coach. So more so on the support this cohort, but it will be actually be one of the coaches next cohort next year, 2025. So super excited about that, what that looks like, what it's going to look, what it's going to be. It was a really good year, and there's a celebration earlier this month for it in Charlotte. Got everyone together. Really amazing, incredible event. To get to see everyone in person. I think as we are in this truly virtual environment, I know some companies, Amazon, sorry, it just kind of slipped out, but I know they're not the only ones, but some companies are doing this whole return to work thing, which so much controversy around that. But I think the one thing that we have learned from the pandemic, from coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, is that we have learned to work in more virtual environment now more than ever, whether that's completely remote or it's kind of a hybrid type of thing. That is something that we are working through. So with that, so those are some of the things I'm thankful for, and obviously thankful for the family I have. I don't talk about it too much just because as much as I am more seemingly outspoken person, I'm definitely more of an introvert, and I'm just pick and choose the stuff I want to talk about. And when I am talking about stuff, I want to make sure that it's adding value. I don't just want to just talk about stuff for the sake of talking about it. But I have an amazing family, amazing brothers, a sister. Both my parents, I would say they raised us right. Like, I am super thankful for all the sacrifices they made growing up. So something I think, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but growing up, I was homeschooled from 2nd to 8th grade. And then I went to a public high school, and then all my younger siblings were actually homeschooled throughout. So for myself, I got to experience private school, kindergarten, 1st grade through the church that we attended. And then 2nd to 8th grade, I was homeschooled. And then from 9th grade through high school, I went to public school. So really experienced every type of school you could really see. So I'm super thankful to my mom as well as my dad. And the other cool thing with my dad as well, both my parents, but especially with my dad, is that he has been doing a lot more stuff with his own business over the last several years. And for the first time ever, we got to do a speaking engagement together for NESB, the Young Technical Professionals. So that's another thing I'm thankful for, being able to not only build community and do all the stuff I do in the STEM space on my own, but able to partner with my father on it. I think that was a really special evening for everyone, and definitely for us to be able to do something like that, something we had not done before, and give us the opportunity for it. And the other thing I mentioned, like even the reason why I moved to Nashville in the first place was because of Mars. And I will say that in the podcast, historically, I've not talked a lot about where I work, just because I think from the nature of the stuff I do with leadership, it kind of lends us more stuff to the stuff I do with IncrediPaul, with speaking, as well with the nonprofit, with Knowledge STEM. So I kind of lean on those things. But I will say that Mars Incorporated, and definitely what I've experienced at Mars Pet Care in Nashville and metro area, has been the best place I've worked at, just in terms of the culture. Talk about the 5 principles: quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. Like, it's really lived out. I would say, like, with any company, like, a company is made up of leaders. Leaders are people, and there can be nuances. Some people are dead set in their ways, and they don't always integrate in the culture. But I would say, as far as definitely compared to the other companies I worked for, the consistency and the culture and the people, and just the transparency, and just being able to be myself at Mars Pet Care has been absolutely incredible. So definitely thankful for the company that I'm at right now. and where I'm going to go in the future as far as different roles. Like in this current role as a senior R&D process engineer, I'll probably be in the role a couple of years and see what I go from that, whether it's more lateral move or if I get into some type of leadership position. Like that's not something I'm really rushing. I do a lot of stuff in leadership for fun. So whether I do that on the corporate side of things, it may not come, doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that I'm at a company that I'm passionate about. I'm able to connect with different people, meet a lot of incredible people, actually friends of the people I work with as well. I know some people I actually work with listen to this podcast, so shout out to them. And yeah, so this episode, they mentioned just focusing on thankfulness and gratitude. And I think one of the key things of gratitude is that whatever situations that we are in, we find ourselves in, I think there's always something to be grateful for. So I mentioned briefly earlier about walking through the divorce process and just navigating, finding out that my significant other was having an affair was not something that seemingly you would be happy about and thankful for. But I think just the way it happened and just the support system I had around me really helped me navigate it. And it was able to help me get stronger from it. And I was able to get better from it, not bitter from it. And I think that's one thing I'm really thankful for, because I think you hear horror stories of people going through maybe similar situations or worse situations, and they come out being really angry or frustrated. It takes years for them to recover, all these different things. And then despite everything that happened, I think the separation and divorce was fairly mutual, just for us to go our separate ways, live our lives, and wish her the best. And I will continue to do my best and continue to pour into people, value people. And even when I shared about it in the newsletter and I talked about it, it was really just because I wanted to make sure that people understood a lot of stuff I was walking through as I was continuing to be consistent with the podcast, with speaking, all these different things. I cut back on some things. So during that time, I was, maybe some of you who've been listening for a while, I used to put out 6-minute Saturdays. There's other stuff I was going to be doing. I kind of scaled back a little bit, got more support, just working on prioritizing Paul, as my therapist would say, and just understanding what that means, and really being a person of faith, like understanding like what God's purpose, God's calling is for my life. And then with that understanding of God's calling on my life, making sure I'm loving myself, and from that, loving others. So it says to love your neighbor as yourself. You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself first. So I think it's a key first step there. But I think that's really it. I've been trying to keep these solo episodes a little bit shorter and sweeter. Let me know what you think about this. If you want me to dive deeper into any different topics, if you want to know more about me and have questions about me, definitely let me know. Also, let me know if you want me to bring 6-minute Saturdays back for 2025. Been thinking about it, praying about it. Like, is that what I need to do? What I want to do? I was doing it because I was trying to get better at storytelling, and which helps my speaking side of things. And that anytime you record yourself and you watch it back, it helps. Wish I could just do it and never release it. But I thought it'd be a 2-for-1 with 6-minute Saturdays to talk about different topics, share stories, and then also release as a podcast. So if I do bring 6-minute Saturdays back, it would truly be a separate podcast that you can stream on wherever you are listening to this podcast, or also watch on YouTube. So for those of you who didn't know, I did that. It was about 33 episodes. So 33 straight weeks I did it, and started like August 2023. And so I talked about a lot of different topics, whether it's specific to leadership and STEM, careers, all those different things. So think about potentially bringing it back, but only if people want it. So if you want it to come back, let me know. There's other things I have on the horizon for next year that's going to be coming, potentially new podcasts that for myself, and then others that I'll be producing. So excited about that. Other thing I forgot to mention as far as being thankful is really for all the stuff I do in NALA STEM. So I have a phenomenal team that helps do everything, and I will name them because they're so incredible. So Anna Chicas Mosier, my VP, who also was recently funded for her own LSAM, Aster LSAM. Also have Myra James, my treasurer. So I've known her for a while from Iowa State. She took over for me as president for Inspire, like a different nonprofit I was leading. Now she works as treasurer. I also have Alexis Thornton, who is the web development chair. I have Dominique Graham, who is our mentorship chair. I've had a lot of people come through. I had Demi, and I'm spacing Demi Smith. Demi Smith, who's our social media chair. And then we have all the incredible people on our committees. And I definitely cannot forget Imani Porter, who is the host for the Knowledge STEM podcast. So I'm helping produce that podcast, and then she's the host for it. And then we have Melissa Crawford, who's doing a lot of stuff in the mentorship side of things. And so many other people that are joining. And if I didn't mention you for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that you're not important, but these are the people definitely who have been involved with it over the last several years, definitely the last year and a half plus. And then Tilly Duong. So sorry, I almost forgot Tilly on the outreach side as well. When also she does with outreach, and that's her passion for now. I think she's been involved almost for 3 years, at least 2 years as well. So yeah, I tried to wrap things up. I got pulled back in, but now I'm actually going to wrap things up. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Just think about homework for you, which I don't usually give homework on the podcast. So if this is the first podcast you're watching or listening to, this is not a regular episode. Don't normally give homework, but this week is Thanksgiving, which is why this episode is what it is. We have this time in the United States to celebrate being thankful and grateful, but I think it's important that we do this on a more regular basis. So it doesn't have to just be once a year. I would say at least once a quarter, maybe once a month, once a day. Think about the things that you're thankful for and make sure that your priorities line up with the things that you're thankful for, because I think a lot of times there are things that we value, but we don't always prioritize them. So that's why I talk about work-life balance. I say it's really priorities. Some things are high on the priority day to day, but what is really crucial is that you are intentional with everything you're doing. Take the time to be thankful. Think about what you're grateful for. Connect with people when you're going through tough times, and you can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible.